Hi everyone, it's CG Stream, and today I gladly present you the Christophe Young, and your, like as always, with Alex Millen, LSK here today with you. Hi everyone. Say hello.
Hi everyone.
Hi to everybody.
Yeah, and just sorry for a bit delay, but we have some problems with setting up the stream.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're finally here. Don't stream on Mac, guys. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Christophe, please, Christophe, right?
Yes, Christophe.
Okay, yeah, Christophe. Christophe, please introduce yourself. Tell a bit about how you became an artist, what are you doing now,
no
the basic information, so everybody would know who are you.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Christophe Young. I'm a young concept artist and illustrator based in Montreal, and I'm currently working for Behaviour Interactive, exclusively on their Dead by Daylight game, which is like a horror survival game. I've also been in freelance concept artist and illustrator for the last 4 years now it's been. But I'm pretty new to the industry. My job at Behaviour is the first studio job I've had, and I just started a couple months ago. But so far it's really, really fun, and I'm learning a ton and meeting a bunch of awesome people and artists and streamers, and yeah, it's just fantastic. So yeah, that's me.
Yay, great.
Okay, just one simple questions, please. Many of our viewers know that I'm the biggest fan of the Dead by Daylight.
Awesome.
Really, I am the player of the Dead by Daylight from release, and one simple question.
Okay.
One just simple question. First of all, I need to check some. You're working with characters,
yeah,
or just only characters?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty exclusively on the characters/creatures, because some of the characters get pretty nasty.
Okay, and the most popular questions: who will be next killer?
Oh, that I cannot
NDA.
answer. But it's gonna be really awesome. I'm sure it's gonna blow you guys all away. So.
Okay, just after the stream, right? We just have a private conversation about all that.
I vote for Pennywise.
Yeah. No, I don't think it'll be. I don't know. I really can't say much, but it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a licensed killer, but it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be new and fresh and scary, as always.
Okay, so back to your artistic career.
Yeah.
How did you decide to become an artist? How your path to the Dead by Daylight? How was it? What?
Oh man.
How you get that job?
It's kind of an interesting one, actually, and maybe. Well, I won't really show you through my folders to show you the history of everything, but I mean, I've been drawing since I'm quite young. Probably started drawing around the age of 5 or 6 or whatever. I don't know, a lot of kids do. But throughout my schooling, I've never really. I was always told that becoming an illustrator, a concept artist, would never make any money. So I decided to go into architecture come university. So I studied in architecture because my mom's like, you're good in math, you're good at drawing, you'll be great in architecture. And I went to Carleton University in Ottawa and studied architecture and just finished my bachelor's degree in architecture last year. But throughout my bachelor's degree, my love for concept art and illustration kind of grew on me as I subscribed to ArtStation and started posting some of the art I did on the side, and just ended up practicing a lot throughout university on the side of doing architecture. And then really I think 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago, I really started putting a lot of effort into building my portfolio, because I knew that once I graduated architecture, I didn't want to pursue that professionally, but rather try to get a job in a video game studio or be able to freelance for a bit. And then once I started getting clients and stuff, probably in my second year of university, I figured that I could actually maybe have a shot at this. So I just continued practicing, continued building up my portfolio. And when I, like a month before the end of university, I just applied to, 20 game studios and found one in Montreal that I thought would be really awesome to join. And so that's how I got the job at Behaviour. And I've been freelancing on the side probably for the last 2 or 3 years, trying to build up my portfolio for that application, and still, adding personal work to this day on ArtStation, keeping things updated. So that's been my path. It's kind of been crazy going through architecture school and doing concept art, learning all that stuff on the side at the same time, because it's quite arduous and time consuming, to illustrate and build up a portfolio like that. But it was all worth it in the end, for sure.
Cool. But you didn't answer how do you get your job in Behaviour Interactive?
Yeah.
It
was really just like a dry application type of thing. I had a portfolio on ArtStation, and then I just applied through a portal. I found the job, it was posted in the ArtStation job posts that they come out with, either bi-weekly or monthly. But yeah, I applied through that by seeing it posted online, and then it was a long interview process. I think it took a month. It was a short Skype interview, and then I didn't hear from them for a couple weeks, and then there was a little test, and then I got the offer. It was really a dry application like that. I didn't have time to network much or go to any conventions or events, but I mean, that's great to do. I was just in a bit of a rush. So I just kind of did dry calls and found something that I love. So I was just really lucky that way.
Okay, I'm just checking your ArtStation right now, and I don't know if it changed since you applied to the company, but it doesn't look for me as as portfolio suitable for the company who's doing the Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
So usually it's said that if you want to apply to the company, you should usually try to make your art in the style of this company, try to understand which kind of art they'd like to see and stuff. So can you tell us a bit about this one? Because again, it's just what I see on your station is different from what I see in the game.
Yeah, for sure. I can go through that. It's kind of tricky sometimes, because when you're a young artist and there are so many game studios and so many different art styles, everybody's dream is to work in a big studio, and work on Overwatch or work on the big blockbuster games. And they all have their distinct art styles, Blizzard has their own recognizable art style, and Ubisoft has their own art style, and all the big companies, those are just to name a couple that come to the top of my mind. But they all have their distinct art styles, and you have to make the choice to either try to conform to that art style and then apply, being I'm the absolute master at this art style and I'd fit perfectly in your company. But that's quite the bargain, because if they say no, then you spent all that time, perfecting that one art style rather than just working on yourself as an artist as a whole, and just nailing down your fundamentals, nailing down your skills and your abilities, so that whether you're at a highly stylistic or stylistic studio, like Blizzard, for example, or whether you're at a super ultra realistic, working on a realistic game or any style of game, you're able to adapt. So my choice when it came to that was I could either spend all my time working on an art style to apply to Dead by Daylight, but even Dead by Daylight is a pretty it's not super stylized. Like it's not Pixar or it's not, you know, Disney or it's not Blizzard. It's a pretty general style. Or I could have just like, you know, work on my own art style, and, you know, work on myself as an artist and be able to adapt. And I just kind of placed the bet on that when applying, and made sure that I made, you know, in my application, made it like known that I can adapt to different art styles, and that it's not just like like I don't have tunnel vision. It's just like a choice that I you know, draw in the style, but it's not like a limitation of any sorts. So, and yeah, I mean, like it's just time consuming to, you know, build up a portfolio that's completely tailored to one particular studio. And yeah, it's just a bargain you have to take. So.
Okay. Today Alice asks a really smart question, but I actually want to ask silly, silly questions, like geek questions. First of all, why you use, in the Dead by Daylight, of course, why you don't use the Robert Englund Freddy Krueger? Why you use new Freddy Krueger?
Okay, wait,
it's awful.
Wait, repeat that?
Why you don't use the the old Freddy Krueger image for the character? Why you use new rebooted version?
Oh dear. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when they like. I mean, I've only been in the company for the last, you know, 2 months or like month and a half almost. So I'm really new to the game, and don't like. I mean, it's quite an old game. I think it's going on almost like 2 years now.
Yeah,
we just celebrated like last week. So happy birthday, Dead by Daylight. But it's like when I guess I don't know if it has to do with the licensing or if they just, you know, had to kind of tailor it towards the game and let's go with like the perfect or the kind of like original version. They kind of had to modernize it, but who knows? It's a mystery.
Okay, back to smart questions, I suppose. Well, I can't say that they're kind of smart, but yeah, just that's probably our subscribers and
they're really good questions, though.
Thank you. So actually, my question was about that. About your architecture degree or your studies in architecture, and like how did it help you with your art? Well, that's pretty obvious, but at the same time that I know that you more like, as you said, you're into character design. So why didn't you go to to landscapes, to environment art and things like that, you know? How architecture degree helps to understand the characters more, like if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. Yeah, that it's like it's two different worlds for sure, architecture and character design. But it really comes down to like what is the kind of like what's your what are your building blocks as an artist, and what do you use to create your art? And architecture provides like a certain understanding to, you know, physical objects and to space and volume that you don't necessarily get when studying in different streams. But it's like I think I just chose to work on characters because I got sick of working on buildings and environments in architecture. I think it was just like balance it out because I was getting tired of looking at buildings and stuff all the time. But I like there's pros and cons to both. Like I love working on architectural elements, as you can see, like in this drawing that I have open in Photoshop right now. But at the same time, I absolutely love the fluidity of characters and their gestures, and I love studying anatomy and, you know, making things feel alive rather than fabricated, rather than human built, and kind of finding the gray areas in between where you get like characters that are interacting with solid objects, or you get characters with, sci-fi elements and cyborg parts and stuff. So you get like the hard surface and the organic shapes working together. And I think that if I were to just like work on one or the other, then I'd lose one of those. And yeah, it's super fun to work on characters. They just make you feel alive and animated.
And where did you get your inspiration from? Like, what inspires you to draw characters? Because again, it's kind of interesting how people decide that they're going to be the concept artists, illustrators, and things like that.
One of the people creating those amazing characters that can do like incredible things, or that like, drive the narrative from a more sympathetic point of view, where you can like relate to characters and they each have a story, and it's just like kind of creating a world through a person. And I think that's why I really got into doing characters. And plus, it was just like a really fun exercises in figuring out forms and figuring out like volumes. To draw a character is very different from drawing like a cube, because nothing is straight and everything is kind of weird and like you think a character works, like you think a human body looks a certain way until you really start to study it, and then you realize that there's all this crazy stuff going on, and muscles interlink and bones disappear and stuff in certain poses, and it's just really bizarre and really interesting to draw. So as soon as I started studying that stuff, it just became more and more interesting to me.
I see. So can you imagine that one day you say like, okay, character design, you're like, I don't know, I'm bored with it and I'm going to environment artist or doing some architect stuff? Because again, I see ArtStation. That's probably some kind of the project you did, like architectural figure.
Yeah.
I don't know how to call it. Like, it's kind of really differs from your other works on the ArtStation.
So that was actually my final project for my my bachelor in architecture. It was my final fourth year project, and it's absolutely different from what the rest of my portfolio looks like, and it's because it's just part of a completely different world that I was living in at the time, and I kind of had to like bifurcate my kind of my time and my efforts, because I'd spend like half my time in school, doing hardcore architecture stuff, hardcore, like urban design and city design and building design, and, working on circulation, building code, and all this stuff that kind of like harped down on me in school. And then when I get home, I do characters. But at the same time, and at the end of fourth year, I really, really started, I fell in love with architecture for that semester, just so that I could get the best work out possible. And that's where this architectural fugue came out, this big 5-panel series. And it just came out of you can still see the fluidity in the kind of the composition of the elements. It's not super rectilinear and straight like you'd imagine most architecture drawings would look like. It still has a lot of movement in it, and it was completely based around a narrative, like a story. So from right to left you go, and there's all these things happening, and then it loops around, and there's all the storytelling that's happening in between. And there are also characters, there are a couple angels that are flying through and stuff, and they each have their story. So there's really an intersection of the character illustration, concept art, and the architecture. It was really melding the two together. But yeah, for sure it's different because it's in pen, and it's ballpoint pen on a giant piece of paper with laser cut wood, which is only something architecture students do. And everything else is digital, right? So, but yeah, it's really merging the two mediums together, or the two subject matters together.
I see. Alex?
Okay. So, the art industry is growing every day. Appeared VR technologies and stuff like that. What do you think will change after 5 or 10 years?
Oh dear. it really depends on like the stream you're in. But for like 2D artists, I think like one of the most important things in concept artists, and if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to start sketching some stuff so that the viewers have something to look at while I'm talking about this. But I think in VR, like, or in that like stream, or sorry, in the concept art stream, then it's really speed above all is really important, and just the ideas that you get out on paper. So it ultimately comes down to how you can produce like the most work or the ideas, like how you can put the ideas forward as quickly as possible. And if that's done, you know, in Photoshop digitally, then that's what's going to stick. If it can be done in VR, then that's what's going to, you know, that's what's going to take over. And but I think it ultimately comes down to like what's going to be most applicable in the different streams, like whether it's concept art or 3D modeling. Like I think for blocking stuff out in 3D and creating, you know, really big environments super quickly, then that's gonna, you know, it's gonna take over maybe. But I think for the getting stuff out on paper really quickly and just for the ideas, I think that digital is gonna, like, Photoshop is gonna stay for a while.
I see. So speaking about the time that you spend on the art, can you say like average time that you spend on the artwork? Like for example, these girls, like Wall of the Ancients?
Yeah, the Wall of Ancients here. Yeah.
Ancients, yeah.
This one was actually really long just because it has like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 gestures, which had to be completely rendered out and posed and lighting and all this stuff. I think this one took like 2 or 3 days, like 12 hours a day. So like 36 hours or 40 hours or something like that.
12 hours a day?
Well, yeah, I'll work from like 8 till 8 or like 8 till 2, depending, like 2 in the morning, depending on how like rushed I am to get stuff done, if I'm doing other commission work or whatever. But I think this was done. So this is the first piece of 2018. So I think I was still on vacation, like on holidays between semesters. It was just like right after Christmas, right? Or like right after the New Year's. So I think I was still on vacation. So I probably worked on this for, you know, 3 days straight, upwards of 12 hours a day, just to like get it done before returning to school. Because once I get back to school, then it's like, school. So there's just a lot more stuff to do once you're back in class.
Okay, and what did you prepare for us today? Like, because people asking, are we going to draw something and things like that? Do you have any ideas?
Okay, well, I was thinking, since this was the picture used in the thumbnail, that I could do like a bit of a breakdown and kind of explain how to like build up a painting or how to build up an illustration from, you know, an idea you have, starting from like the fundamental idea and how you're going to set it up compositionally to setting up the lighting and stuff. It's kind of just like a breakdown of my thought process through the beginning all the way to the end of this illustration in particular. Does that sound all right?
Yep, why not? Sounds cool, actually.
So
let's start. Yeah.
Basically, it'll be like a walkthrough of like what's your main idea, and then like what kind of branches you can go off of that in terms of like how do you want to compose the image, and how you want to use perspective, or how you want to use colors to really drive that idea, and how that idea can come out in all the different places of your illustration and not just be like the surface element of the illustration, not just be the subject. So I'll just walk you guys through the Wall of Ancients and show you what it's all about, show the story that I wanted to tell, and how I set the image up to kind of convey all that cool, fun stuff. So, if you don't mind, I'll just get started.
Yeah, please.
You're welcome.
So, okay, so The Wall of Ancients is, it's. I wanted to tell the story of like an ancient civilization, it's kind of like Greek gods or something that was, they might have roamed the earth like before modern humans or before even ancient civilizations. They might have been giants, or they might have been, but they were like gods of some sort. They were like deities. So, and I wanted to show that in kind of like if you were looking back on history, or like looking through a history book, or looking through a museum. So I think it started when I think I found a reference for this like main character in the center. And I just really liked her pose and her gesture. I'm just pulling up like a bigger brush so you guys can see it. But so this girl here, I found, I think a portrait of some model or something. And I liked how like this gesture was like very fluid from like the back to her face. But her face was very head on. Like it just stared you right in the eyes like that. So I thought it was a really strong pose, and it can make for like something very beautiful, like compositionally. And so I used her as like the main kind of focus of the drawing. And then I wanted to set up the rest of the drawing to kind of be monumental. So when you think like, so basically the drivers were like ancient. I want to make it seem like old. And then I want it to be like godlike. And I want it to be monumental. And I don't know, I'll use museum. Because I was thinking like at the beginning that they might be statues in a museum, and it might be like more three-dimensional. But I ended up going with this for a couple other reasons. I also want it to be really big. Like, when you see those vista shots where you just look over really big environments, and it just feels like the whole world is in front of you, and you're kind of just in awe. I kind of wanted it to feel like that. So I wanted it to feel like a vista. So having these like ideas in my head, I started kind of setting up my setting up like the composition for it. So since it was godlike, right away I had the idea of having like cupids or something reaching down. So you see these in a lot of like religious paintings where there's like there'll be like a saint or something, and then there'll be cupids flying around them. So I thought that maybe if this was like the Zeus, then this could be like the demigods reaching down like around her, and they're just like lesser than her, but at the same time also cool and monumental. And then in terms of like composition, I wanted to make it like, well, monumental. And when you think of monumental, it's like grounding history. It's like something solid. When I think of it, I think of like symmetry, and you'll see like arches where you just have like but the best, I think, is the Arch of like Troy or something, where you have the main arch is just gigantic, and then you'll have like stories along the side of each one, but it's just huge, and maybe the people are only like this big, and they're walking through. So this is really where like the architecture element came in, is how do I set this scene up like architecturally and compositionally so that I can just show how big this scene is, or how big this like exposition is for this goddess and all her demigods, or all her like fellow gods. So that's why I set it up so symmetrically. You can see that like right in the center. Well, it's actually, I started completely symmetrically, but as you'll see in just like a second, it's not. So I used the the center of her face, because I wanted to direct all the attention to her stare. So I used that center line as, the focal center of the piece. But if you look at the width that there is on each side, it's a little different. And that's because I wanted to keep the visual balance. So you can see that there's some spare space here. That's because it's just called focal balance. So there's heavier elements on this side. There's a little lighter elements on this side. And I just wanted to balance it out visually so that your attention stays on the center. And that's just something you have to get a feel for. And it also, just makes it off symmetrical or just a little asymmetrical so that it doesn't seem so stale and dead. If I were to make this perfectly symmetrical, then it would seem artificial almost. So so I started off with I wanted to make it symmetrical. That's not a vertical line. So I wanted to start it out symmetrical. So I found my center line, and then I based all the architecture around that. So I have the main window, which was to frame her head. And I thought maybe I could have a strip of backlight here just to frame her head. And then because it's so grand, I wanted that feeling of, the grandioseness here, the vista. So I used a really low horizon line. So my horizon line is somewhere around here, which means that you're close to the ground, right? Or your eye is close to the ground, and it means that you're looking up, right? So, and you can see from the characters here that you might be the same size as them, and you're just walking through this giant hall. This brush can okay. Yeah, so you might get that same feeling when you're closer to the horizon, and it just makes this feel so much larger. And then everything else, all the other gestures were gestures that I sketched them in rapidly and just to get just to get some people in. But then I found I started finding a bit of a flow to frame the center person again. So you can see that these characters, so I wanted to split it up in the foreground, midground, background, like you have in any environment or any big shot. So everything's pretty much midground or background in this photo because I don't have I don't have a person here. And sorry for the crappy sketches, but this is how I always started drawing. So it's not like I have a person here that's in the midground, because I think it would make it odd and you wouldn't get that feeling of a gigantic space behind them. So what I did instead is just push everything towards the background, and really make it a monumental wall. So in the midground, you have these two characters, which are framing. So keep in mind that this is my center point, right? So I have these two characters, which are framing her face, and then I have these two characters, and this guy's arm, and this guy's gesture, and this guy's gesture. They're all trying to keep it in, keep the eye in, and then obviously these two characters, which are looking down at her, is keeping that in. And then I have these two characters that are kind of pushed towards the back of the illustration, just to close the sides off so that if your eye does happen to wander out, they have something to look at the edge of the page and they don't wander off the page. You don't want it to just be empty and then your eye just flies off the page. So this is all this is a strategy you can use for any any interior environment, any exterior environment, any big shot, any big illustration, is that when you have a center point for your subject matter, you just create kind of a sort of spiral around it where you have, well, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the golden ratio stuff, where you kind of have, you use the center of the spiral to kind of frame everything. Well, it's sort of the same strategy where you have like several layers around your subject and they all end up, centering towards, or accumulating towards the center of the object. So that was all like, everything composition wise was just basically centered around her head and to keep the attention there. But at the same time, you never want like a, you never want like a shallow subject, or at least I don't. I think that like some of the best illustrators always have like their main story and then they have like a little side story that you only notice once you like look at the illustration for a while. And those are always like the plot twists, and that's what like really, really engages audiences in my opinion. And well, it's at least what catches me all the time is when there's like the main subject and then a little something happening on the side that nobody, or that you only notice if you pay close attention. And that's where these little two characters come into play. So these were used to show like scale for one, because these are like real human beings down here. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Visiting the museum. And they're used to kind of set like the time. So like what era this is in. I imagine them as being like a little bit, bourgeois, European, maybe like the 1850s or 1840s or something like that, where they have, the big puffy dresses and the top hats and the long suits and stuff. So this places it in like the era. And then that's where all the other little like architectural elements came in, like all these little paintings and stuff, is just to like add to the narrative of the whole thing. So, all these across the bottom, and then there are a couple bigger ones that peek through here. They're just there to like kind of drive the story. They're kind of like big tapestries that you'd see in big cathedrals or museums, of course, like art museums and stuff. But you'll see them a lot in like older, very, very old buildings, where you walk through the building and they'll have these tapestries along the hallways, and they always tell a story. They tell like the story of the downfall of some god, or the downfall of, like in cathedrals, it's always the steps of the cross, and like how Jesus died on the cross, and all the different the different elements of that. But in here, they're meant to kind of tell the story of these gods, or this goddess, and all the different like steps in her life. And it just adds like a secondary area of interest, which is always good to have in your illustrations, for viewers who really like to sneak in and look at all the little things going on. So this was like and these are all recycled illustrations from or sketches or quick speed paintings that I've done in the past or never used. So I think this was like the fountain of something. I forget what it's called, but basically it's like a story of like the goddess of the moon, where she has like this big fountain that's like dropping down from the ocean or something, and there's the moon in the background here. And if you go in really close, there's like this little character who's like one of the goddesses, and she's just like standing under the fountain in like this giant sauna looking bathtub thing. And yeah, so these are all, the secondary elements or secondary stories that help to drive the idea of like the ancient gods, or like the ancient, this ancient civilization. This was like, I think, part of a sky. This is, I don't know, all old paintings. And I think all these individual ones, they were just like kind of photo bash of a bunch of old illustrations that kind of just made a crazy pattern. So if I were to like, it's just one of these things where you like just warp it. And just like, I think I set them on overlay or something. It was just one of these things where, you know, you do just something crazy and jumbly and chaotic, and then I just selected, you know, part of it. And from that, so if you just look at this piece here, you can get like a whole little illustration out of that, right? Like it gives you all your values. It gives you, you know, a color scheme, and all your stuff. You just have to have the imagination to, it's kind of like looking at clouds. Like everybody imagines shapes and things, and you can kind of work out a subject matter, because right now it kind of just looks like an abstract painting. But so I just took this, you know, super chaotic thing and selected a couple squares like that, and then you get all these different panels on the bottom, which, you know, seem to tell a story, but who knows, maybe they're just crazy abstract paintings in this museum that don't really tell anything. So yeah, that's like the secondary narrative of this, and one of the big driving elements for this painting was like the storytelling, and less just like gesture drawing for the fun of it. But that was also super fun. So the first step was, again, to like set up the composition, and then the second one was to like they kind of go hand in hand. You think about it while you're illustrating, but it was really in the order of like setting up the composition and then how to reinforce the idea with narrative and adding other elements. And yeah, then it's just a matter of like, you know, lighting and rendering everything, and going back to your fundamentals on how to, you know, learn your color theory, learn your perspective, learn your lighting, and getting that. Well, I'm a huge fan of putting in like a ton of detail into my stuff, but, you know, just getting the aesthetic feel of the painting that you want and driving, you know, the story forward with every brush stroke. So yeah, that's like that was the main driver. If you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I think guys will have some questions, so just let me ask them in Russian as well. But guys, sure. If there are any English-speaking guys in the chat, so don't hesitate to ask your questions right now, if you have any. И ребята, которые не понимают по-английски, задавайте свои вопросы, о чем вы хотите узнать. Мы это переведем, только, пожалуйста, задавайте на русском языке, мы на английский сами переведем. So, 36 hours. Oh my god. So, again, if talking about the 36 hours, how much time you spend on rendering, how much time on the composition? Just... Oh, dear.
It's like...
You don't have to be precise, don't worry.
Yeah, it's like... But I can give you like a quick like percent. Like, I think it all depends on the complexity of the illustration and what you're really going for that illustration. Because planning can take anywhere from like half an hour for like a speed painting and blocking everything in, if it's like something that you can be really free with. But because there are so many gestures and stuff in this painting, it probably took like closer to like 6 or 7 hours to block everything out, because it was really a matter of getting all the elements to work together. Because there's, even though it's like kind of a flat composition and there's not a lot of, you know, perspective at play, in terms of like lining things up and the walls and stuff, but it's a lot of like figuring out how to, you know, set up all the gestures, how to set up the lighting, how to, you know, where your colors are going to be, where the attention is. It was just a lot of planning. So probably like, 6 or 7 hours for this. And then all of the rest was tweaking stuff. It was like painting every character out and making sure the lighting was just like just like perfect in certain areas, and then focusing the attention in certain places. All the rest was rendering. So
okay. So from our subscribers, they ask about the academic painting. I lost it. Like, how much time should you spend on academic painting? How it helps you in your work in CG? Like, I think it's kind of question how traditional art. Like, do you study traditional art? But you do because of your studying.
I've never studied. I'm kind of lazy that way. I study what's like convenient at the time.
Okay.
It's like, I'll be, I don't know. I spend almost no time studying certain artists, like, especially traditional artists. Like, I guess I saw a lot in my art history courses in university, so I had the exposure, but I never went into, detail studying, the masters. Like, if I were to study like Monet or something, I wouldn't go in and look at every single painting and, write down what kind of colors he used and how he used his brush strokes and all that stuff, and then try to like reproduce the works or whatever. I never did that because I guess I'm lazy, or because any studying is good studying. I mean, like you need to get your time in somehow, and whether it's studying the greats or just practicing your own technique, it's all really important. So, but I guess it's personal preference.
Okay, I have some maybe philosophical questions. So, in the Middle Ages and later, artists was primary people who expressed themselves through art. Now, artists actually are a conveyor for the pictures in many companies. How does an artist express himself in our days?
Oh, that's a tricky one, because there's kind of a there's kind of like two sides you can like come from. Like, there's the side that if you're a concept artist, you're not. It comes down to what the definition of an artist is. Is it self-expression at its purest? Like, is it is it communication? Is it like art can act in like a lot of different ways, and how much of yourself you put into your art also will change like the kind of the perspective you're coming from. Because as a concept artist, the end goal isn't your painting, right? It's the product. It's like the video game that you're working on. It's the animated 3D character that you're working on. It's not the character concept art, right? So, like, if I'm creating like an environment, which I think I'll do a short speed paint of, if we have the time. Okay, so if you're working on like an environment or a character, like for a concept art, like for a company, then you're not going to put your mind and your soul and everything, all your background into that painting. Like, you'll put your knowledge in, but it's not really a matter of self-expression. It's a matter of expressing what the company wants and what the video game needs. So, but then if you're doing personal art, like the Wall of the Ancients, it's like, there's a lot of me that comes out in that painting. So yeah, the definition of the artist will change depending on the industry you're working on, for sure.
Okay, that's great. That's amazing answer. So, our viewers, where's the questions, guys?
Yeah, there are quite a lot of them, so I'm trying to translate the ones from Russian into English. How do you express the values in your works? And I think the question was mostly about some kind of know-hows, some cheats, hacks, and stuff like that.
The values.
Probably, yeah.
Like how do you manage your like the black and white values in a painting?
Oh my God! Don't ask me the questions. I'm the one who's asking. The depths, the depths in the work. Like, I mean, this kind of stuff. Like, how can you express that? Like, you told us when you were explaining how you work on your your work on your painting, about the composition, and you told us about that you try to make those two people there and like to show that how monumental this sculpture is and things like that.
Yeah.
So probably you have some about
color.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about this, about the depths. I don't know, but it's kind of the question that we have. So
okay.
Probably just okay, to put it simple, like the few things that would make anything look like it's like in an environment and not flat, on your in your work, something
how
like that.
Make things look like three-dimensional and how to make it's so when you're working, so I'm sketching out an environment, believe it or not, in this scratchy black and white painting that I'm doing here. But so when you're trying to create depth, your values are the most important thing. So to create depth in a large environment, one of the most important things is atmospheric perspective. So that's atmospheric perspective is when things go into the background, they get like closer and closer to the tone of the sky, because there's more and more atmosphere or like air between the camera lens, right, like your eyeball, and the subject that's really far in the distance, right? So something that's super, super far, so if you were to look around here, I know that this is going to be the farthest area in my painting, and everything that's closer is going to be darker or have higher contrast. So things in the foreground are going to have really dark and really light colors. So dark blacks and really white, like light grays. But things in the background are always going to have like lighter grays, and everything is going to come closer and closer to the color of the sky. And so that's how you show, like, that's how I manage, or I try to show depth. And in terms of showing form and volume and like how the shape works, everything has to do with the way you light the object. Like when you're drawing a cube, you know that you'll see like the three faces, and you put different values on each face to show the shape of the cube, because all that form is how light, like the only way you perceive form, the form of an object, is just the way the light hits it, right? So I think that goes for the values. And in terms of colors, I try to keep like complementary colors in mind often, and you'll see pretty soon, I don't know exactly what I'm painting yet, but complementary colors. So blues and oranges, purples and yellows, reds and greens, they're opposites on the color wheel, and you'll always use one more than the other. So if you want like a cool painting, you'll use a lot of blues and a lot of desaturated oranges, or you'll use like a lot of greens and a lot of desaturated reds, just to keep like the color balance nice. But I mean, colors, it's so subjective. Like some people like crazy colors. I like to sometimes put just like rainbow colors, just kind of subtly in everything. So like for instance, if I'll give this painting like a basic color. So I'll go into my midtones, and let's say I want this to be like, I don't know, this looks like it might be a hot desert or something. So in my midtones, I'll take my color balance up, and I want it to be, I don't know, very orange in the midtones, which are basically my grays. And then for the highlights, it's going to be like a hot sun. So those are also going to be, reds and oranges. So that just boosts up the heat. But in my shadows, right, I'll want cool shadows. So I want to go on the opposite color, like side of the color wheel. So that's where you'll get some blues, maybe a little bit of green in, right? And then bam, you've got like a color scheme to start off on. And it's just as quick as that to figure out basically your color scheme for your whole page, and then, or your whole illustration. And then from that, you go on to picking colors which are, you know, within that family. So yeah, this is basically how I figure out like a color scheme for something. And most often than not, it changes very quickly. Like I'll close this and open it again, and everything will change. Like I'll change everything as soon as I open the file again. But yeah, that's depth in colors for you in 5 minutes or less.
Okay, great. Okay, people are asking about your pipelines, about what kind of studies you do for practice.
Oh, it was a question about 3D.
Yeah. If you use any, you know, 3D software, anything like that, or it's only 2D and...
everything's only 2D. I've never done any sculpting or any I've done a little bit of 3D in architecture, like in my studies in architecture, but it's nothing like character modeling or any of that stuff. It's all just like buildings and blocks and stuff. So everything I study is generally, I study lighting schemes sometimes because I find them super fun. I love to light objects differently and have bounce light and have different key lights and all that fun stuff. But like really just study what you're interested in most. Like, and that really depends on the artist. Like, and you just, I guess you have to study a little bit of everything to find out what you really love. But, you know, some people are huge into exaggeration. If you look at like, you know, caricature artists and what they do in their line of work. But yeah, in studies I'll do like a lot of gesture drawing as well. So there's like, I use this website called Quick Pose, which some of you might know, and it's just a really simple website. They have a bunch of models and it just flips through them quickly and gives you, you know, 30 seconds to draw them. And yeah, so that's most of the studying I do. Besides that, I mean, I draw so much at work these days, and I'm also doing, you know, a lot of commission work and stuff that I don't get as much time as I used to spend studying. But I mean, any practice while you're drawing and illustrating, you're always thinking about that stuff. So it's kind of studying at the same time. At least I like to convince myself.
Okay, there is another question. Actually, you know, now there is such of a trend, at least in Russia. Many people go to the industry simple to just make money. It's the same in Canada, or not?
Do people go just to make money? Well, that's another kind of question of like, are you a real artist or not? Because a lot of people say that you're not a real artist if you're not just doing it for like your passion or whatever, and like just for self-expression and all that. But I started doing art. I mean, money's a huge driver in every industry, right? Like, you're not gonna go into something which will make you poor and unhappy and just like ruin your life financially, right? Just for the heck of like, you know, being being like a famous I think you know what I mean by that. Like, You don't just throw yourself into an industry that'll ruin your life. And so yeah, it was a big driver in my career. Like I like the money that I make from illustrating, but I also love the work. It's not really a it's kind of a tricky question, but I don't know. Money's great. Money's great, art's great, but don't just do it for the money either. Like, don't just do something you hate because it pays you well, because then you get home and you're tired and you have a lot of money, and then what do you do with it? Because you're tired anyways.
Okay, that's great. And one more question, please. When will you make your art book or graphic novel, maybe?
Oh my God.
Any plans?
In the future.
One day, right?
Yeah. Maybe I'll... I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Like, I'm not sure if an art book is something that I really want to do, because, well, it depends if it's just like a compilation of works or if it's like a themed art book. But I don't know, maybe I'll find something like a project or whatever in the future. I was thinking of doing it for, so I recently did the illustration of the post-race breather, which is like the sexy girl with all the machine parts around her neck. So I was thinking of doing kind of a project or kind of some world building around that. So designing characters and vehicles and a lot of keyframes and stuff for that too. But then I started working, and a lot of that just kind of went out the door because I was too busy doing other stuff. But maybe it'll come in the future.
Okay, great. I will be waiting.
You'll be waiting.
Yeah, and actually, I just realized that we didn't ask you much about the company and about your work with the company, like the Behaviour Interactive. So could you please tell us a bit more about how the creative process, like the process of creating art is built in the company, if possible, of course, if it's not like under NDA or something.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's
about
under
your
my...
colleagues?
Is somebody else calling?
No, I mean about your colleagues, like... other artists.
I just heard like something else. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the industry is super fun to work in if you have like the drive to, work for 8 hours a day every day and do this sort of stuff for that long, because it can be like, I mean, drawing for eight hours seems like kind of the dream come true for every artist and getting paid for it. But once you get into the industry, it's no longer a question of like drawing what you want to draw for 8 hours a day. Like, I'm not doing my personal artwork for that long every day. I'm working on a project with other members who are also team players. It's really becoming a team player, kind of like becoming a gear in a big wheel, and just playing your part and being good at playing that part every day and being consistent. But it's super fun. Like, I work very closely with the art director, obviously, with the producers, with the creative directors, as well as with like a lot of the 3D artists. There's a lot of communication that happens between them and me, of course, because they're working on the concepts. And then it's super, super fun to see your concepts come to life. Like, there's nothing more kind of rewarding than to see something that, you spent a lot of time and effort on come to life, like in 3D, and be animated and, have voice actors voice them. It's a dream come true for a concept artist who loves the narrative and who loves to bring characters to life with story, because they really do come to life in the industry when you have the budget to make a project like that come true. And yeah, it's great. at Behaviour because they're a well-established company, and yeah, they have a great team. So yeah, it's a lot of fun in that aspect. It's something that it's really difficult to do if you're like a freelance artist or just working independently to get a project rolling like that, because the video game industry is such a competitive industry that it's hard to get, a video game off the like off and running. Unless you have like really good friends who are willing to work for nothing and make your awesome 3D models and animate them and rig them and do the effects and all that crazy stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
So the next question is, what software do you want to know in the next 1 or 2 years? Maybe you'll try your art in VR or something like this.
Oh, I really want to learn ZBrush, actually. Despite like never, like, I want to learn ZBrush to model, I guess, in the next couple of years, because I think it'd be a lot of fun to like learn how to do stuff in 3D. And I've tried VR out. I've tried like the H2 Vive and the Oculus Rift and stuff. I just tried one from Microsoft like a couple of weeks ago, and they're super cool and super fun to work in. And really, like, if you want to create super gigantic environments, you can do them really quickly because you just make them small in front of you, and then you just blow them up, and then you can like see inside them and walk inside them, and it's really cool like in that way. But I think it'd be cool to learn to model in 3D, just for like, I don't know, just for blocking stuff out, or to see like a concept, if a concept's like is possible in 3D. So yeah, I think that's like the next software I want to learn to use. But who knows?
So you have as far as I understood, you have a bachelor degree in architects right now?
Yeah.
And are you studying for a master degree in architects, or?
I don't think so. I have a lot of friends who went back for the masters, and I definitely miss a lot of them. But I think that my passion really lies in concept art for the moment. But I think I might go back to school later for like management or something. But I really like the industry at the moment, and the people I'm meeting. So I don't want to throw that away to go back for some master's degree. And really, ultimately, like, a master's degree in architecture is good if you want to go into the like the architecture industry and become an architect, because you need that certification to get your license to become an architect. But in the concept art industry, you just really need an awesome portfolio and, maybe a good personality on the side, some good some good team skills. So
okay, do you have a nice personality then? It wasn't the question.
I hope so.
Okay, actually, they already answered my question. Like, if you are not going to get a master degree in architect, what would it be? And you said that management. Why is it management? And how this degree may be, useful for an artist?
So, the industry is really like, video games are a market, and it's run like a business, right? So when going into management gives you it gives you management skills. It gives you people skills and how to deal with people in a business context, in the office. If you want to move up in the office, for instance, like if I wanted to become a art director or a lead concept artist in the future, and start to really play a leadership role in the team, then management skills are normally like required. Like they're you need the certification and just to have that position. So, and also it's just like it's just forward thinking. I think it's always good to have management skills because the video game industry has a lot of sociable people, and when you go to conventions, it's good to network and that sort of stuff. And in management is just like it's a nice skill to have, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I was asking you would like to be an art director, and I think it's quite, I don't know, not the obvious, but well known that when you become an art director, you mostly manage people, manage art, and less time for drawing, for paintings. So would you really like to do that? Or is it like, when I'll be 40 years old, I would like to be an art director, not drawing? Or you just believe that you would like to draw for the rest of your life, like, career plans in that case?
Yeah. I think it depends on what studio you're in as well. Like some studios do, like the art director is strictly like almost like a babysitter. I don't want to say a babysitter, but
but yeah, there's just something.
It's just like they manage the artist and they manage the project for the most part. But I think to be an art director, you have to be a visionary, and it's a really difficult job to kind of have the whole weight of the art, the way the art is going to turn out in the project kind of on your shoulders. But yeah, I think it's definitely just like a future career path thing. Like it's not something that's going to happen like next year I want to be the art director. And just like disclaimer, I have no idea what I'm doing with this painting because I'm really bad at talking and painting at the same time. But who knows? So yeah, that's like, oh yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, babysitting. So yeah, it's a super hard role to play, but it's a super vital role at the same time. And I think it would just be fun to be, have such like an impact on the outcome of a project. Like if I happen to have like a crazy vision one day and I'm like, oh man, I need to make this come true. Like make this video game or make this this project come through, then having the skills and the credibility to become an art director would just be nice to have, if something just were to come up. More skills, more awesome skills are always better than less awesome skills, right?
Yeah, sounds legit,
Okay, at least how do you think most popular mistake for the beginners artists? How do you think?
Worrying, I think the biggest mistake, and I used to make it all the time, is worrying about the final product. Like the biggest, because you get caught up in it and it's super demoralizing. So as an artist, if you're gonna stay consistent or if you're gonna stay happy in throughout your life as an artist, you have to get away from trying to achieve the vision you have in your head right away, like when you're creating an illustration, especially in your personal work and your personal studies. Like when you're doing commission work and stuff, then that's when it's important to be able to have the skill to do that. Your client wants something and you have to be able to deliver. But when you're practicing and when you're a beginner and you're building up your skills, looking or trying too hard to achieve exactly what's in your mind is gonna drive you insane. So instead of falling in love with the product, like the final product, you have to fall in love with the process, right? Fall in love with the sketching stuff out, and fall in love with painting and practicing your lighting, and only perfect practice makes perfect, and what makes perfect practice is the fact that you're putting your all into it, and that you love it, and you're trying your best all the time, and you're not continuously demoralized by the fact that you can't achieve a certain look, or you can't achieve a certain style or whatever, because all that will come with time. Like it's not you don't learn, you definitely don't learn this stuff overnight. It takes several years to build your skills up, to build your eye up. So yeah, just fall in love with the process rather than, trying to achieve something perfect right away at the beginning. And yeah, don't stiffen up too much. You have to be like kind of loose. And I mean, look at what I'm doing. I'm doing like I have no idea what I'm doing right away, but this might turn out to be something awesome. Maybe I'll post it later and see where it goes. But I mean, this just started off as like a quick sketch and my mind's all over the place. But it always turns out great when you're feeling it, like when you're having a good time doing it. So yeah, don't get too caught up in the final product. Just have fun making it. Does that answer all right?
Yes.
So. Okay, I don't remember. Oh, well, we talked about the art books and that one day you will have one and things like that. But I just don't remember if you said what kind of a dream project would you like to have, or what a dream project means to you. Mm-hmm. How do you imagine it? What kind of project it would be?
Oh, dream project, I think would be, I think a dream project would really to be like some sort of art book, like some sort of world building project. I just don't know when it'll happen. Like I kind of like what comes to mind is like George Lucas and Star Wars and stuff. Like I just want to make like the next Star Wars. Just build a universe visually, at least, like, design the characters, design the vehicles, design the action sequences and the key shots and the environment and all the props and the effects and, all the cinematographic like frames and stuff. Just like design a universe from scratch and to like make it my own. But who knows? That might take that. Who knows when that'll come?
Okay. How do you think a person from another country like Russia can just go to the Canada and work in the Canada studios if you're a skilled person? It's easy or not?
It's actually quite easy now. I think it's a lot easier now than it was maybe like 5 years ago, even, because now if you even have a look on ArtStation in the job, in the job section, you'll see that a lot of them have what's called like displacement aid, displacement aid, which is basically a program that finances or at least highly subsidizes your move. So if you're hoping to work at like in Canada for one of our studios, then it's generally pretty easy if you have the portfolio. Like I have a lot of colleagues who are coming from Europe and the United States, and I have a couple from South America, and because our studio has like the displacement aid program, and they'll finance your move, and they'll finance your moving into your new place and setting you up in Canada or in whatever city you're in. And it's actually not, I don't know what like financially it's like, it's always the hardest. It's hardest financially. If you know English or French, which are basically the two business languages in Canada, then you should be able to find a job in pretty much any studio if you have the portfolio for it. And then it's just a question of financing. And if you have if you get a good job, then you'll definitely be able to afford the housing and stuff. So
Okay, thank you.
Can you...
Mhm.
Just a second, yeah, sorry. Just can you say a few words about what we're doing now in Photoshop? What are you doing?
What this
Yeah.
crazy stuff is? Okay, so
yeah, just a few words.
So right now this is kind of what I think cynics would call a paint exploration. So right, this layer here, which is all kind of textury, this is an awesome texture brush, which I just made from. I had like I think I downloaded like a old paint, like rusting off a sheet of metal. Like I downloaded an image and converted it to black and white and made this texture, which if I were to make this like really dark, so if that was like my base layer, already kind of looks rusty. But so I just use this to add like grit or like teeth to the painting. It just adds texture and something that you can almost physically feel when you're painting. So this has two purposes. One is to add texture to the drawing, and the second is to add color. So I'm trying to do like a color splash. So here you can see I'm just like shifting over the hue and whatever, and I don't know, I'm a big fan of kind of purple undertones, purple or red. They always add like a little bit of heat. And then I'll take like another color that's, I don't know, like green, which is almost the opposite. Green goes well with purple. And I mean, it might look really ugly right now, but you know, you set this on, you go through your layer options and see what works. So soft light, hard light. Oh, that's actually kind of nice in some areas. So then I'll just go and set this on, like, you know, play with the opacity, play with the layer options, and then I'm going to go in and erase some of this because this is supposed to be like overexposed. And you can see it just adds a little bit of like texture and color everywhere. So that's the difference there. And I still don't know what this is going to be. It kind of looks like a ship, but like a shipwreck. But we'll see where it goes. I'm trying to do like a quick environment. Oh, green, a little greener looks good too. Maybe I'll make it more subtle like that. And yeah, so right now, like, I'm just focusing on color and value structure a little bit. And a good way to check your values, and I see this all over YouTube, but basically the way you check your values, and this is the undisputed best way, it doesn't mess with your colors, it doesn't mess with anything when you do it. You put a layer of black above your painting, and you set it to color, and that's your values, and then you can switch it on and off. For all you people who are wondering how to check your values really quick. And then with that on, you can, you know, go into your levels and adjust your levels accordingly if you want it to be like ink splotch, or if you want it to be like super overexposed and get that epic scene feel. But yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. Can you tell about what kind of project that already exists would you want to work and why? For example, some video game that already exists and you actually want to work with it, or maybe movie.
Oh. There are a couple like IPs, like there are a couple movies and games that I think are super cool. Like, or I think the ideas are super cool. Like I just saw the trailer for Mortal Engines. It's the movie with the giant cities that eat other cities. and they're like on wheels, and it's kind of steampunk. It's just a crazy concept. It's like a future. Basically, the cities are mobile and they have giant wheels, and bigger cities, like I think it was London, was eating a smaller city, like a satellite city, and they kind of race through crazy landscapes like in Mad Max, but rather than being, you know, little cars that run off who knows, then they're just giant tank cities that are like going like full-fledged. So I think that's really cool. But then on the other side, I like really macabre stuff. So I think one of the coolest concepts or the coolest like vibes for games that I've seen are like, I really like Bloodborne and the darkness of Bloodborne, or like Dark Souls. But Dark Souls is a little too fantasy for my taste. But yeah, those I think would be super cool to work on. And then I think those are like the two top things that I think would be super cool. Or Dishonored. Dishonored seems like a really, really cool concept. And some of my favorite artists have worked on Dishonored. So I wish I could.
Oh, what's your favorite artist?
Yeah, favorite artist like whom?
I think one of my favorite artists, I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, but his name is like Piotr Jablonski.
Piotr Jablonski, yes.
So
Actually,
sorry if I completely butchered that name, but he's absolutely.
We hope that you'll survive after that.
His work speaks for itself. So.
Yeah.
Piotr Jablonski is cool, yeah.
No, it's actually, you know, we have some questions which may seem a bit stupid, silly, or challenging to answer, but actually those questions are not for exact answer, but more to see how people think, I don't know how to explain it in other words, but your thought process and what kind of things would you think about in the first place and stuff. So that's absolutely okay. I actually like how at first talking about the picture or your work in Photoshop at the moment, like first it looked at me like something icy and like the mountain kind of stuff, and now what I see in it's some weird combo of sands and oasis somewhere in the sands, I'd say greenish and kind of weird.
It's kind of weird. It's definitely kind of weird to say the least.
Oh, yeah. But actually,
this is what happens when you put like half your attention into your work and spend all the time talking.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. Well, we have about around 20 minutes or so.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah. We have a question from the chat and the people asking if you participate in any contests and your experience in it. So.
Yeah. Well, if you follow me on ArtStation, you might have seen that I've participated in I think 2 ArtStation challenges. The first was the Ancient Civilizations Lost and Found challenge. I think I got an honorable mention on it, so that was super fun. And the second was the Trojan Horse was a Unicorn challenge from last year, which was a lot of fun to work on. I think I ended up doing 2 pieces in that time frame. And yeah, you learn a whole bunch from doing those contests. You get to follow other artists' work, see their pipeline, see their work style and their workflow. You're exposed to feedback from people in the industry, which is super valuable, because just for the sake of the experience. And then you get to meet a lot of awesome people. People comment, you meet people in the community. And because there's that competitive edge for the challenge, you work extra hard to make something good, to make something presentable and to add something awesome to your portfolio. So I think they're all positive points to the challenges and to participating in competitions like that.
The next question is, what's the traditional artist you favorite? Maybe some old masters and stuff like this. Maybe you get some favorite paintings from the Middle Ages.
Well, definitely nothing from the Middle Ages. A lot of things were lost in the Middle Ages. A lot of like the knowledge. So definitely nothing from that era. But I don't know. I really don't I don't study traditional artists that much. And all like so many names are just like have just like fled my mind. But there are a couple. And I forget their names. And I'm really sorry. But there's a couple like ultra realistic painters who do just incredible portraits in like oil paint. And then I really like the work of I have his book close by. He does work for Dante and I'll be back in literally 5 seconds.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, back. Yeah. I really like the work of a etch artist whose name is Gustave Doré. He was a French artist who illustrated for Edgar Allan Poe and Dante and a lot of poets and he just did tons and tons of their like copper etches. And then, the classics like Leonardo and Michelangelo, and then they're absolutely incredible polymaths, and all their works are absolutely amazing. I think those are like my top people, but there are a couple more. Their names are just fleeing me now, so.
Okay. I don't know if people have any more questions in the chats. Again, please ask in Russian, not in English, because sometimes it's even harder to understand what people wrote in English, and try to translate in English back to English, I'd say. Okay. I actually was wondering if the studio you're working at are going to announce a new game really soon, and what kind of game you're working at the moment, like not only the Dead by Daylight stuff, but I think that you won't answer me those questions.
Well, they released a new game in like North America, at least that I know of, just recently. I'm not sure if they have in Russia yet, but yeah. So there might be a new game that's coming out. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut in case I get in trouble.
Was it announced on the E3? Okay, never mind. Actually, do you play games? Because
I play so little games.
I think we missed this question, so I'm kind of curious at the moment.
I have one question with video games. How do you think, what will happen next in the future with the video games? Will we live in the Matrix, for example?
Will we live in the Matrix? I don't think we'll live in the Matrix. We're either already in it, or we'll never be in it. But I think that's about
okay.
It. I think it'll definitely, video games will definitely progress in terms of player immersivity. I think that with virtual reality and stuff, video games are going to become super, super realistic, and people will be able to literally walk around in them and stuff in virtual reality. But I don't think that something like the Matrix is going to take over, and that AI is going to kill people off inside the video game or anything crazy like that.
Dun, 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 dun. It's usually we have
great.
sometimes we have kind of a word that people use at the end of their sentence so that we understand that they finished their thought.
Okay.
But I think it wouldn't work. Okay, yeah, sure.
Roger.
Roger.
That's it.
Yeah, nice one.
That's what we use in the military.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I was curious about if you're talking about the game industry, can you say that the Montreal and Canada differs, like how studios differs depending on their, like, I'd say geolocation, like probably some culture difference. What do you say, like,
cultural differences or like work culture. I don't think I've been around long enough to be able to like answer that question very well, but I know for a fact that there are very different cultures in different studios, just in general. Like some studios will and there's quite a big difference also between like the United States and Canada, I think, because there's generally more funding in the US, I think, but I mean there are also huge studios in Canada, so I take my word with a grain of salt. But in terms of work culture, there are studios that require you to work like 100-hour weeks, and there's a ton of pressure, and you make an insane amount of money, but you also crash and burn after 6 months or whatever. So there's that type of work culture in some studios. Other studios are more like overtime's not good for you, and like they're more sustainable in their approach, where they'll treat artists like more like human beings and less like machines that just produce and then die. So yeah, but it varies a lot depending on how much the project is worth in terms of money. Like if it's a multi-million-dollar project, there's going to be a lot more pressure on the artists and on all everybody participating, and also the time constraints. Like if the project needs to be done in 3 months, or if it has to be done in a year or 2 years, because video games are becoming more and more like movies, where they'll take two years to produce a video game. Just look at like Star Citizen, which has been taking years. It is still years in the making, and a crazy budget, but they're going to come out with a insane video game. So it varies a lot depending on those factors. But at Behaviour, it's quite nice. It's quite balanced. The work life is very balanced. So, Roger.
Okay, thank you for answer.
Yeah, I think that we have a few more questions, and then we'll just end the stream,
sure.
Actually. So one of the questions that people want to know is about burnouts, but I don't know, you're quite burnout? Young, and I wonder if you ever had, the feeling that it's over, I don't want to draw anymore, I don't want to do this and that. How you conquer these feelings with this situation, with...
It definitely happens. Like, everybody has their bad days and their good days, and it's just something that comes with the job. Like, when you're really passionate, when you're really, really passionate about something, whether it be art or whether it be, I don't know, music or a sport or something, in any field, when you're really passionate, you become really involved. And when you become really involved and things don't go your way, then you get frustrated and pissed off, and you can have really, not huge breakdowns, but definitely like phases where you feel like crap and you don't want to work, and it can be difficult to recover from those, but you just have to work through it and find your passion again in what you're doing. But I haven't had a major breakdown yet, which I'm very thankful for. So, Roger.
That's good.
I was gonna say.
I like how you pronounce it. Roger. Sounds cute. Okay. I don't know if we have any more questions from the guys who like, what the hell are you doing? It's
what the hell?
Actually,
what the hell am I drawing?
Yeah.
Okay. I can give you a little hint. No, I can definitely. Okay, so this is a boat in the middle of a jungle.
Yeah. Cool.
So.
Yeah. I can see it. That's, I don't know if
it's an old scrapyard boat, and I'm guessing that they're in the jungle and there are people discovering it. And here, maybe I'll draw a little figure, and then I'll show you guys a quick trick.
It's like a Rorschach test. I see a fish.
Yeah.
Okay. So Alice asks the final questions, and we're...
Sure.
Okay. So actually, I would like to ask you to give some advice for the beginners, for people who are listening to us right now about the, I don't know, a few mistakes that every beginner makes, and like a few advice that you can give those who may be starting their career or who want to break into the industry.
Yeah, I think we were discussing that a little bit earlier on kind of the risk you have to take if you're trying to pursue a certain studio or not. And that's, be wary of where you're putting your time. Because time is really, really valuable, and it becomes even more valuable as soon as you get into the industry, into, where you put your time, where you put your practice, and where you put your efforts in preparing your portfolio and creating pieces and stuff. So if you have if you want to break into the industry, which can be quite challenging because it's very, very competitive, you have to put your time into balancing your portfolio, showing that you're skilled, but at the same time showing that you're unique and that you have an edge on other artists, and showing that you know your stuff. So in your pieces, always keep in mind that don't just create anything just for the sake of creating anything. And I know I shouldn't be the one to say this because my portfolio is all over the place, but put your efforts in kind of having an element in your illustrations that tie your portfolio together, whether it be a certain style or a certain character or a certain character type, like a motto, and try not to waste time on things that you really don't care about that much. At the end of the day, you're trying to get into the industry to find something you're passionate about. So don't put all your efforts into, learning 3D or something, or learning, a certain program just because a certain particular studio requires it. Try to become as not generalized, but I'm not really sure how to say it. Just I don't know. I don't have more than that to say. Just put your time, manage your time well. Manage your time well.
And people damn it, he didn't even give us any hang of time management.
Yeah.
And it's just in the end of the stream.
But I can time management. I don't know. I'm very new to this too, so I'm sorry if I can't give straight answers. I've literally been in the industry for a month and a half. So
No, that's quite okay. Just don't worry. And actually, my final question would be, if you had a chance to have any of your wish come true, what kind of wish would it be? Imagine your fairy godmother standing next to you, and what would you ask her?
I want $1 million to produce my
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of people. I want $1 million I want $1 million, and I want to be the next Piotr Jablonski.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Wait, so can I just show?
Beware, Piotr.
Beware, Piotr. I'm coming after you.
In the end, will be only one.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What, you want to say something?
Yeah. So, this is just. This is like I just want to show like a quick trick if ever you're caught out of time and you need to make something semi-presentable and that sort of stuff. So this is like this is a actual, I don't know what I'd rate this painting, but I mean, my mind was all over the place and there's still a lot of cleanup that has to be done on it. But if you had to, for instance, present this really quick, there's always a couple things you can do. You can either, you can either like frame it nicely, like lay it out on a paper really nicely. But just after, I'm just going to put a little border on this inside. So just a little something like that brings it up a little bit, makes it look a little more presentable. But something I really like to do, and this is even for like a final brushed up painting, because unless you're going to print this, the odds that people are going to zoom in on it and look at everything intricate that you spent all the time on doing, like few people are actually going to zoom in on your stuff to look at all the detail. So what I like to do is just put what's called an unsharpened filter on it. So an unsharp mask sits in filter, sharpened, unsharp. And what that does it brings all the detail out in your brush strokes. So you can play with this, you can make it like really intense. I mean, that's like insane, but don't do that. But I like to just put it a little bit on, especially when it's less finished. And it just gives it that, I don't know, it gives it a little bit of an edge. And then generally I convert it to black and white to hide all my color mistakes, but no, I won't do that today. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Have fun drawing, have fun painting, and don't let your dreams be dreams.
Let your dreams come true.
Let your dreams come true.
Okay, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening and being here with us today. And it was a great artist, Christophe Young from Montreal today, and you're, like as usual, Alex Miller and ССЫЛКИ with you today. And thank you guys. See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.